In today's video, we're gonna take the brand new Arrma Fury and push it beyond its limit. But before we do that, I wanna take this brushed motor to its limit. This system was pretty inexpensive. We might be able to go even cheaper. Because whereas the stock ESC only does 2S, I've got an ESC that'll do 3S and even 4S. And I'm curious to see what this little brushed motor can actually handle. Because as you can see here, you can get a 3S capable brushed ESC for not a lot of money. And if that motor can handle 3S, it could represent the easiest and cheapest way to get some more power out of your system. Now, to the limit's no fun, so I've got something that'll push it past the limit with this 4S 80 amp ESC. This ESC is technically designed to run 2 motors, but it will still run 1 motor. Now, if you're interested in seeing the original project I bought this ESC for, make sure you get subscribed because that's gonna be a pretty neat vintage build. Now I just hook up one set of these cables. And since we're definitely gonna be making this motor really hot, I think it'd be a good idea to add a fan to this optional fan mount. That's likely something we're gonna need anyway when we turn this thing into a monster. This is a 40mm fan hole, and the only 40mm fans I have are these monster server fans. I've got a full video on how you can make these into your own cheapest, best cooling fans. It's gonna be a bit of overkill for this, but it's what I have, so let's get it installed. Will this stock motor survive 3S? Will it survive 4S? Put your guesses down in the comments, let's go find out. Okay, stock motor, 3S battery. That's quite a bit more power. Full throttle. Still feels pretty smooth. One more pass. All right, let's check it out. 31 miles an hour. That is a lot faster than it was on 2S. Let's see if this thing will survive some bashing. If it does, we'll try 4S. Well, as I'm sure you could tell, that was a catastrophic failure, and it happened a little bit quicker than I thought it would, which makes me wonder what actually failed in the motor. To find out, let's do an autopsy. These motors are not designed to come apart, so we're gonna have to pry all these little tabs back. We've got about 8 of them around the outside perimeter. I'm just using a pair of flush cutters here. They're probably not the best tool for the job, but these are cheap flush cutters and I don't mind sacrificing them. Once we do that, we can pry that end bell off, and immediately on pulling the rotor out, we can see that the fan is melted. So obviously this thing got pretty hot, but the strange thing is it doesn't look like anything else is damaged. It looks like the windings are fine. The brushes themselves look fine as well. I don't see any discoloration on anything, so it looks like this fan just got too hot and melted, which is kind of disappointing because the motor manufacturer really should make these fans from a material that isn't going to melt when it gets hot. You might be wondering why we're just looking at the shell here. It's because I had to wash the truck off and it's outside airing out because it stinks too. While I was washing it off, it made me wonder if there's an option for a receiver box. Maybe protect that receiver a little bit better from the water, let's take a look on Thingiverse. We'll go ahead and put in the truck name. And cool, as you can see, there is something we can print out. Not only does it have a receiver box, but it's also got a place to put the ESC. So let's go ahead and get this put into the slicer. Let's get this printed out. And here we go. I'll go grab the car. Let's see how it fits. So obviously, whereas that brushed motor makes a ton of power on 3S, it's not going to last very long doing so. Now, it is possible that if you had a less powerful ESC, it might last longer, but I'm going to go ahead and recommend not running the stock motor on 3S because even with a less powerful ESC, it's probably going to end up failing on you. I'll just get the rest of these electronics off of here. And let's see how this mount's gonna fit. All right, so it looks like these holes actually aren't gonna line up. It looks like this was made for the Gorgon, and these holes have been changed since then. However, this receiver box is pretty cool, and I think we can use it standalone right here. Get these surfaces cleaned up. I'm using some semi-flexible TPU here. I really like TPU for these RC applications. It's very strong and nearly indestructible, and it tends to work well with self-tapping screw applications. Stick that down there, and that should be good. All right, guys, it's time to turn this thing into a monster. First thing I wanna do is put a motor in here. I think we're gonna go back to this Spectrum 3150 kV motor. It was working really well, and I think it's going to be able to handle the higher voltage we're going to put into it. Now, speaking of monsters, I just got the shipment notification for the Losi NASCAR. I've got some big plans for that, and I'm really excited to see how it turns out. To power this, we're going to be running the Castle Cobra 10. Due to cable length restrictions, I'm going to have to mount this on its side. I definitely don't recommend you doing this, but it should be fine for testing purposes. The other thing I wanted to address is this servo. It's been fine so far, but I have my doubts as to whether or not it's going to be able to survive the bigger tires we're going to put on this thing, so let's go ahead and get it swapped out. And to replace it, we're just going to use this RTR Team Corrali servo. It's not going to be that much faster, but it is steel geared, so it should survive those bigger tires. All right, let me just tidy up this wiring. These are the tires we're going to be running. They're off the Maverick Quantum 2 Flux, and as you can see, they're quite a bit bigger in diameter and quite a bit wider. Obviously, these tires are not going to fit under the stock body without modification, but I've got a brand new Gorgon body. Let's see if we can make that work. And unfortunately, no, it's not going to fit. Let me show you why. When I have the back pins lined up, the front pins don't line up, and it's hard to show in here, but these pins are actually more narrow than these holes, and they use a slightly different mounting system. And as you can see here, the Gorgon front tower actually puts the body mount even further forward, so this isn't gonna work. Which means our only option is gonna be to trim the stock body. In the rear, that should be pretty straightforward. I'm just gonna make this wheel well larger, and to do that, I'm just gonna use a pair of curved Lexan scissors. The best thing to do is go just a little bit at a time, keep checking it, but I've done this enough times that I'm gonna be pretty aggressive on this, and we'll just see how it turns out. The best thing to do is just to follow the line that's already there, and that'll get you pretty close to looking good. Let's see how that fits. That's pretty good, but we need to go just a little bit more here in the front. All right, I think that looks pretty sweet. Now, cutting the front's gonna be a little bit more tricky. Because of the way the suspension travels, we don't need to do a whole lot here. I think I'm just gonna cut right around here. Well, there we go. That's still gonna rub a little bit on full compression, but I think that's a good compromise. Let me get the other side done, then let's see how this thing looks. Well, she looks awesome, but looks are one thing. I want to know how it performs. Let's put a 5S battery in and find out. All right, guys, 5S brushless. I get the feeling this is going to be pretty hard to control. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's about a quarter throttle. See if we can get a pass out of it. Woo-hoo-hoo! That's fast. That was about quarter throttle. We'll give it one more go. I don't want to crash this thing. Okay. Let's bring it in. All right, guys, 52 miles an hour. That is plenty fast enough for this little truck. Let's see if it'll survive some serious bashing. Well guys, I'd say we found the limit pretty quickly there. Overall, running these bigger tires is a lot of fun and it handles pretty well with them and it's very fast, but that 5S system is just way too much power. As you can see, we popped the plastic universal off, and the problem with this is, even if you put this back on, it's gonna come off more easily next time because the ears have already spread and the plastic's already deformed. Once this happens, it's pretty much over. That being said, I'm very happy with this car. It's taken a lot of punishment over the last few days. On 3S brushless, it's a lot of fun, it's controllable. I do like these bigger tires. If you wanna try something different, definitely go for something like this. And I would say overall, for the price, the Arrma Fury is kinda hard to beat. Even on stock 2S brushed, this thing is a lot of fun. And if you've never owned a two-wheel drive truck or even haven't had one in a while, this might be a good one to get into. That's it guys, thanks so much for watching. Why don't you get into one of these?